From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates across North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and my personal handle at Dave Scott SOR. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Where are we here? Yeah, help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Dr. Simeon Hein has a PhD in sociology. His dissertation focused on fractals and the role of technology in limiting people's ability to perceive information. He has been studying remote viewing and crop circles since '96 or so, and his current research is about natural technologies on how humans can access them. Dr. Hein is a member of the International Society for the Study of Subtle Energy Medicine and the American Association for the Advancement of Science. He also writes and records guitar music. Maybe he could teach me a note or two tonight. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, we're going to bring one story out. The New York Times article on UFOs. Joe Murgia is going to join us for that part as well. Dr. Simeon Hein, good to have you here on Spaced Out Radio tonight. How are you?
Great, Dave. And I got to tell you, your sponsor, Bumblefoot, I was lucky enough to see him on the Royal Affair tour with Asia Yes and Moody Blues bassist about a year ago this time. Last June, June, and in New York. And he's a fabulous guitarist. I'm telling you, great vocalist. It was a treat, total treat.
Well, you know what? It's a pleasure to have him here. I got to know him right after he finished up with Guns N' Roses, and I'd seen him a bunch of times with GNR. And, I got to know him when he toured in Vancouver, and I just kind of said, hey, let's hang out, man. I want to use your music for our show. I told him what the show is all about, and he's like, yeah, man. And he goes, that sounds great. So we worked out a deal, and Little Brother Is Watching is our theme song, because you never go wrong with a little GNR. You know what I'm saying? You never go wrong with that type of music.
And he's the guy to teach you some guitar, I'll tell you. So just awesome guitar.
Absolutely. Absolutely, my friend. Before we... Yeah, go ahead.
No, thanks for the introduction. Appreciate that you kind of summed up my whole life in a couple minutes there. It was very accurate, and I love all those topics. I got started with fractals and chaos theory at Washington State University, a couple decades ago. And all of this stuff is branched out from nonlinear science, fractals, math, that leads us in interesting directions, not the same old tread-worn paths, but new directions that show us that things are possible that we haven't even imagined. So,
yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely weird, man, how this all seems to tie into one another here. So I'm trying to figure out here, and for our YouTube listeners who are tuning on in right now, I know we have no audio there, okay? I'm trying to figure it out, but we are working on it. So please bear with me, as sometimes I hit buttons that I don't know what they do, and I think that's what's happened tonight. So anyways... Anyhow, when we are looking at all these entire subjects, and we are looking at what we need to do in order to try and get things going and learn about everything that it seems impossible, Simeon, how do we chart this? How do we go about using both experience and scientific method to try and bring it all together? Is it even possible?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's something that I think about a lot. The way you go about doing it is taking the inverse point of view. If you look throughout the history of science, going back hundreds of years, every new idea just about was completely ridiculed. The scientists were ostracized, excommunicated from their churches, persecuted, right? And then they turned out to be right. And so it's really a measure of authenticity how strongly ideas are rejected by the mainstream scientific community. So if you've got an idea out there and the mainstream scientific community is ridiculing you and kicking you out of their professional society, that is a real sign that you're on the right track. So that's how I look at it. You flip it around and realize how much bigger is the whole thing than we thought. How much is real that we haven't considered? And just look back at the history of, inventions and science and electricity and magnetism. Vacuum spaces were considered supernatural, Dave, at one point. Vacuum spaces in bottles. That was considered, the work of the devil. Supernatural, impossible. Something God would not have allowed vacuum space. Now, we all accept that they're vacuum spaces now. So just things change, and if something seems, you've got evidence for something repeatedly over and over again for these topics that we're about to talk about, but science hasn't accepted yet. That just means that science hasn't come around to an idea or a set of theories, or just the assumptions are too rigid, and it simply won't look at what's possible. Because look at this technology we're using right now. That would have been considered like witchcraft 100 years ago, right? The way we're communicating. So things change. That's what you learn, and you realize how much you don't know.
And that's the hard part, is we have all of these things happening around here that we do not know, okay?
Right.
We have no clue what they are on, okay? We don't know what's causing them. We don't know what's happening, whether it's UFOs, whether it's crop circles, or even Sasquatch in the forest, let alone old Uncle Stu, who seems to be, roaming around as a ghost in your house. That just doesn't seem to, pull together anything like that. So when we take the paranormal, using the paranormal as an umbrella term here, how does it all happen together? How does it make it? How does it come together with everything that people are experiencing?
Yeah. So the first thing is that people can trust their experiences. That's often a really good place to start. It doesn't matter that science doesn't formally accept these phenomena yet. But when you've done something like remote viewing, when I did my first remote viewing class in 1996, I didn't think it was going to work for an ordinary person like myself, but it did. I couldn't dispute the evidence. Here I was drawing these pictures of a target that I wouldn't see for half an hour later. But here I had drawn it half an hour earlier really accurately, and many other people in the class. When you get that sort of evidence, you realize that what you've been taught, your formal description of reality, is incomplete. And that's the first step, is to realize that your idea about how reality works is incomplete. And because nobody really understands completely how it works, so nobody was able to teach you that it was incomplete. And as you know, professional societies never like to admit that they don't know what's going on, right? They want to pretend like they're experts. But the fact is, we don't know 99% of our own universe. I mean, we don't even know what dark matter is made of, dark energy. These are things that hold galaxies together and push them apart, stuff like that. Even mainstream physicists will tell you that we've only identified 5% of what matter is in our own universe. So the starting place is just to admit that our description is incomplete. There's a lot we don't know. And then when you consider all these paranormal phenomena, you want to start looking at the common denominators, right? Some of the common denominators are Bigfoot, ghosts, UFOs, crop circles, and related phenomena are strange electromagnetic signals, batteries failing, cars stalling, things like that. So you sort of have to ask what all these phenomena have in common, and are they really paranormal, or are they just something that we haven't understood yet? In other words, calling them paranormal is a way to kind of push them away and marginalize them, right? And then they can be subject to a ridicule sort of factor. But if you look at some of the commonalities, you begin to see that there's sort of some physics principles behind this. Not saying we totally understand it, but you've got evidence, right? You've got data. You've got cars that stall. You've got radios that stop working around a lot of these phenomena, right? So you know something's going on that's impacting our physical world. So the question is, what is some of the common denominators, or what's going on? And all of a sudden, this stuff doesn't look so strange. It just looks more unexplained.
Dr. Simeon Hein is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. The New York Times today released another UFO story. This time, I think it's moved us ever closer to disclosure. I don't know what is going on and what is actually happening with this. And I think, though, that they're getting the proper information, that they're eking out the drips of UFO knowledge that are coming out of Washington State, making things happen. What is your thoughts on this New York Times latest article?
Yeah, I think this is the third New York Times article on the subject so far. You know, if listeners will remember, the first one was December 2017, right? And that was a blockbuster where we learned about the ATIP program, right? Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. We learned about OSAP and its connection to Bigelow Aerospace, you know, the BASS program, all of that, Skinwalker Ranch, right? And so each of these articles has raised questions for even the average person, not those of us that kind of study these topics, but if you read the comments on these articles, which is really fun, the comment section, you'll find that a lot of people have had UFO sightings. There's hundreds of comments on each of these articles. And people said, yeah, you know, it kind of reminds me of what I saw. So this latest article moved the ball further down the field with respect to establishing the physical reality of these objects, specifically in terms of recovered materials from crashed craft. Now, you can imagine, Dave, this is a very sensitive topic, you know, in terms of national security. We're talking potentially about technology that is way ahead of ours, right? That has, you know, could have military implications. And I will tell you, I've talked to people that have handled this material, and it wasn't something small. It was something they said actually looked like it could have been part of a disc or something. It was that, you know, a couple feet across, and it had the curvature that they could imagine what the size of the disc was. They described this material to me as something that we wouldn't be able to manufacture on Earth, at least for 1,000 years. Not only that, it was manufactured in the zero-G environment of isotopes, you know, variations of the elements in the periodic table, isotopes that are not found even here on Earth. So their opinion was, well, this has to be coming from somewhere else, which makes it extraterrestrial. And so this article, while it didn't get into specifics, it mentioned Dr. Eric Davis, who was one of Hal Puthoff's colleagues, saying that he had briefed Senate committees about the fact that there are these materials that they can't identify where they're from, how they're made, or how they work. And I thought for the New York Times to have that as a major article, I think that's pretty big news, because it's saying, look, somebody's got pieces somewhere of magic material. What is it made of? Who has it? It raises a lot more questions. And Ralph Blumenthal in one of the comments in his response said, this is just sort of the beginning of our research into this area. There's going to be more development in the future. So I think it's a big story, and it's really important because it raises the question, you know, what sort of programs are involved with this? Where's the money flow? Who knows about this, you know? And why aren't they talking about it? So a lot of questions came out of it.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, too, is there's a lot of questions about that. Harry Reid coming out, I mean, he really hasn't said anything new. The interesting part that I found about that entire article is the fact that, you know, there was a line saying, you know, this secret's almost about to become uncovered. It can't be covered up anymore. There's too many people talking about it. There's too many people who are running around trying to figure out what is going on, why things are happening, okay, what is actually in the sky. And Simeon, I think that is probably the closest that we've had to full-on admission. I mean, this article was basically saying to the people out there, we're trying to get these questions answered. Where the heck are the answers? They're putting big pressure on now.
Right. And you have to wonder what's going to be the process by which we kind of get these answers, right? I mean, in theory, here in the West, we're open societies and we discuss things, and you have to wonder who has, you know, who's involved with this. The article identified the Office of Naval Intelligence. Now, that's a big step right there, because if you're familiar with what's been going on, people have been filing FOIA requests with the Department of Defense, and one of their spokeswomen, Susan Goff, I think her name is, has said, oh, ATIP and OSAP, that was just about advanced Russian and Chinese technology. It had nothing to do with ETs, until you had Nick Pope come along and say, well, why was there a paper devoted to the Drake equation, which is supposed to estimate the amount of extraterrestrial life out there? I mean, that has nothing to do with other countries. That has to do with other beings from other places. And she basically denied the whole thing that ASAP and OSAP still exist. And here we have in the article, they're saying, well, the program has changed names and it's moved to another department, which is exactly what Lou Elizondo and the TTSA people have been telling us. And here you had the proof in the article. So it basically opens up a lot more questions and says, well, what's going on here? What's the process who's involved? And they say it's not classified, but it's dealt with classified subjects. So it raises a lot of questions.
Dr. Simeon Hein is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. In your opinion, are we right around the corner from disclosure, or is this still a while away because the military has a lot of secrets it still has to uncover?
In my mind, disclosure is a process. It's never going to be a single event. And the reason is, Dave, it has to do with the way our minds work. There's only so much information that we can absorb at any one time that's really different than what we were led to believe, what we were taught in school, right? If you spring too much of this information on people too soon, you're going to get some sort of reaction, the rubber band effect. It's going to snap back and people are going to say it can't be true. But I think Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kean, by the way they kind of posed this New York Times article with a lot more questions than answers, it makes people kind of curious and they're going to want to know more. So it's almost better than just telling them, right, that certain dates of certain crashes and if there are survivors and so forth, which we've been told, and where this stuff is being kept. By kind of making it mysterious, you kind of make people curious. And I think that's a better process for disclosure than because if you gave people too much information, they would just shut down and say, I don't believe it, right? I mean, the average person that's not used to it. But if you look at the comments to the article, people are really sincerely interested. And they're wondering, what was that I saw, And here this article is telling me the government's been studying it. And, I mean, I think the big message here is, the people who've been saying that this is shut down since Blue Book, I mean, they weren't telling us the truth. This has been going on since Blue Book in other forms, all the way up to the present with departments that we don't even know what their names are. And someone's studying this right now. And that you have to ask, well, why are they studying it? So, again, it raises a lot more questions than it answered, I think, this article. But it leads us in the right direction, which charge of this, what are the purposes, what are the goals, and should we be devoting more resources to find out, what this is all about?
Okay, so do you believe then that this is of something that is anomalous and potentially a threat the way it's being played out?
Well, listen, you had this discussion the other day with Lieutenant Tim McMillan, retired, right, about the threat thing.
Yes.
Have to agree with his point of view. I mean, anything is potentially a threat, right? I mean, your car is potentially a threat if you don't drive it safely, right? We haven't established that there's any intentionality as a threat from whatever this intelligence is. Now, I know there's a lot of subjects that are associated with this, cow mutilations, missing persons in national parks and things like that, and perhaps that is connected to this topic or not. We need to find out the information about this. So I guess potentially anything's a threat, but my feeling about it is that if it was a threat, we would have already seen something like that in a much bigger way than we've seen. I mean, these beings, if they're 1,000 years ahead of us technologically, I mean, it's already game over. So I don't personally see the evidence of a threat. I realize that that's what governments do. I mean, governments see things in terms of the threat. It's almost their job. That's what we pay them for. That's what militaries do. You know that saying, Dave, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And right now, we've got a big hammer that is obviously been looking at this, and that's all they're seeing is nails. But, we need to look at it from the biggest point of view. My point of view, obviously, scientifically, is what does this tell us about how our universe works that we didn't understand before? And where are these objects coming from? Who's guiding them? It's really, I'm more fascinated by it than afraid, If there is a threat, that would need to be documented, but I don't think that has been documented yet. So,
Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because the fact that they were mentioning that they have some sort of crash retrieval, that's going to put a lot of pressure on what's happening with these government black ops project companies, a lot of the military. It's going to put a lot of pressure on these, saying, hey, it's now come out that we have this. How do you sweep that under the rug?
Right, and that's really important. Have these materials been outsourced to private aerospace companies who have made use of the technology and are not sharing it with the rest of us? I mean, we're still all using mostly, combustion engines and fossil fuels, which isn't helping global warming at all. And I think that there would be a real reaction if we knew that this technology had been understood in some way to the point that it could help us, live with a safer, cleaner, less expensive energy sources. That's certainly a big aspect of the topic. At the same time, we're told by people like Dr. Eric Davis and other people that I've talked to have told me flat out they haven't figured out how this stuff works. I have zero doubt that these materials exist from possibly crashed UFOs or even potentially shot down UFOs. This material exists because I've talked to people that have looked at it. Whether someone has actually figured it out and incorporated it into our black budget programs or not remains to be seen. But I imagine that this New York Times article, that's sort of what exactly it's asking is, has someone figured this out? And where's the process? Where's the public accountability? Who has it? Is it being shared? Or is it kind of being transferred from the government to aerospace companies, as I've been told, so that the government now has this plausible deniability and they can say, in response to FOIA requests, we don't have this stuff anymore, right? And if it's part of someone's private, inventory, like we found out it was part of Bigelow's DAS program, and the agreements between the government and these companies would say that you don't have to share it, then we're not finding out what it is. And I think a lot of people feel that this has to do with, where do we come from? Really big questions. Who are we? Do we have neighbors? And those sort of questions seem to outweigh any private interest, in my view. At least that's how people feel about it. So the material exists. Who has it? Where is it? Who's studying it? Is it beyond our capacity to understand? I mean, or not? We just need to find out more about it. And I think that's what the article really led us to think about.
Well, the thing that gets me about it is the fact that, and I'll get into this when we come back from the break here at the bottom of the hour, but what gets me is this opens up to a lot more questions that we got to ask, and we'll get into that. Dr. Simeon Hein coming up on Spaced Out Radio, more UFOs, crop circles, remote viewing, as I work on the audio for YouTube as well. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio right after this.
Ooh, beautiful night.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know little brother is watching.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month, and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
We're taking Sunday nights out of this world on Spaced Out Radio. This is Michael W. Hall, also known as the Paranormal Lawyer. Together, we're going to go on an exciting journey into the unknown. I'm going to bring you some of the best interviews in the paranormal and supernatural to start your new week off on a freaky note. So tune in to Spaced Out Sundays with me, Michael W. Hall, only on spacedoutradio.com.
Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Great to have you with us. I appreciate you all taking the time to hang on out. I want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Dr. Simeon Hein is with us tonight. We're talking all things strange, weird, wooful, and a plethora of aliens in between, because that's how we work it here on Spaced Out Radio. His website, SimeonHein.com. If you want to check it on out, I highly suggest you do. Simeon, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Absolutely. And, we got the YouTube feed working again, so anybody wants to check that on out, it is working fine. We appreciate you helping us through the delay. Now, Simeon, right before the break, we were talking about, the fact that crash retrievals. It's been said that we have that technology and that we have everything going that we need to learn about this. Okay? But to me, this asks a lot of other questions, okay? If the government for so long has said that we have had this technology for years, we automatically have to conclude that it's Roswell. That's only obvious. Has to be Roswell. So that means in the last 70 years, we may have learned a thing or two off of this. Maybe don't know how it works fully, but we may have learned a thing or two. So to me, and I apologize for asking this in the very long route here, but I have to. This opens up to a lot of different questions. Okay?
Yeah.
Do we have jump rooms? Are we in contact with aliens? Do we have anything other technology that is anomalistic that we need to learn about? I mean, there is a lot of questions that this opens up to. What do you think?
No, it raises a lot of questions. It raises questions about technology, and it raises a question, do we have neighbors here that are next to us on the planet that we're not aware of? And we refer to them as UFOs or even ETs. I mean, they might not literally be extraterrestrial. They might be able to travel in ways we can't travel in. So there are really big questions here. The level you're asking, which is really crucial, is has some of this technology been slowly fed into mainstream society and economy since Roswell? And we had, Colonel Corso's book, Day After Roswell, which, had some criticism, but he didn't completely write it. His publisher, had a lot of editorial power over what he wrote. But people who've researched that said it's plausible that some of our technology, and you have to wonder, since World War II, it's really accelerated, right? I mean, my dad grew up just around the time radio was being invented, right? Back then, refrigeration, without the Iceman coming over, that was like a huge improvement sometime in the early part of the 1900s. Look how far we've come just in one generation from his level of technology, radio and refrigerators, to what we have now. Some people think that is due to extraterrestrial technology, the way Corso described, being slowly disseminated into our society from these crash retrievals. Other people say it hasn't happened to the extent that we thought. And the bottom line is no one really knows, Dave. Do we have these huge triangular craft called the TR-3B? People see big black triangles, all the time as part of UFO sightings. I mean, at least as far as the UFO sightings are concerned. Some people have speculated, David Marler and others in his book, Triangular UFOs, that these could be reverse engineered ET technologies. Now, if that's going on, that's pretty darn serious, right? Is who's doing this? And I'm often concerned that our level of intelligence, if that were to be the case, is being deliberately held back. Because if these are just restricted to special access programs, then it's not disseminated to the wider society. And as Hal Puthoff described to us at one of these meetings in Vegas, SSE, Society for Scientific Exploration in Irvine, it was a joint meeting a couple of years ago, 2018, Vegas, he called it stovepiping. And he said the stovepipes don't talk to each other. So it leads to the possibility that other countries will figure this out faster than we do. I can tell you from reading Science Magazine every week that China is really very advanced in the area called topological insulators, these kind of exotic materials that can switch from being insulators to conductors at a microscopic level. And some people think that has something to do with the way these craft work. So when you hold back the flow of information and knowledge in an artificial way like this through special access programs, excessive classification, you hold the whole society back. And that's my main concern. And I know that's the concern of these people that are involved with disclosure right now, TTSA and others, is if we don't have some openness about it, then it would become like what we've criticized, like what the Soviet Union used to be. Like we're behind some sort of iron curtain, and we don't want that. Nobody wants that, right? So we have to find a way. I don't know all the answers of how far it's been reverse engineered. I know the materials exist. Have we figured out how some of it works, like you're suggesting, or more of it in terms of advanced propulsion, or even like you're suggesting some sort of hyper transportation technology? These are all questions, but we need to have some sort of process to figure out. Since this New York Times article raised it out in the open, how far along are we with the reverse engineering? Is it having some sort of damage on our society to have excessive classification? Something even far back as Bill Clinton was concerned about excessive classification, right? So when you have excessive secrecy, does it damage democracies, democratic republics? And I think it does. And at least we could have an open discussion. And I think that's what we're hearing from some of these people, including Mark Rubio from Florida, the senator, from the Senate Intelligence Committee, and others are saying, it's just our gut instinct, I think, as North Americans to want to have some sort of process where we get to ask the hard questions and do our best to figure it out. Because if we don't do that, Dave, we're just stopping the whole process of evolution, right, on our planet. And to me, that seems like really artificial. So I don't know the answer to how far this has been reversed, whether those black triangles are really reversed, if they're ours or if they're theirs. But they're somebody's, right? I've seen them too. Somebody has them, and someone had to figure that out somewhere along the line. Is that an example of this reverse engineered technology or not? Anyway, what I suspect is going to happen is there's going to be greater calls for openness about this subject, and that will slowly lead to disclosure. It has to happen because we can't stand still anymore. We can't stand still.
No, and this ball is starting to move faster. I never thought it would. Okay. But I'm really, and trust me, I am the biggest skeptic. I'm not a supporter of the To the Stars Academy. I've mentioned that numerous times on this show as to the reasons why. All right. But I do believe that Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo are doing some fantastic work to get this message out. I also do believe that there is still truth in a lot of the media. And because I love the media and I have faith in it, and I have faith in the good reporters. I'm not saying the national ones who go and spew a bunch of BS out there, but for media like local radio and maybe state or provincial radio here in Canada, I still think that there is good hope. I really do, on getting the message out. The media, though, plays a very large role in this. And it's going to be very interesting to see if they drop the ball on this story or they run with it, because when the New York Times comes out saying we have crash retrievals, or it is believed we have crash retrievals, if the rest of the media doesn't jump on it, that's how the cover-up continues. If they start asking questions at press conferences, that's where it's going to put either the military or any of these alphabet groups on the hot seat. And if they don't answer, they look like idiots that they're lying. If they do answer, they could be lying as well.
I totally agree. It's up to the rest of us and our media to do their job. Right. And it's so true. The local media does a better job with this than the national media. If you'll remember, the late Jim Mars used to say that he had a source, I think it was NBC or CBS somewhere in New York City, that actually screened these stories, and they wouldn't let the UFO stories run, from local sources up to the national nightly news. They just wouldn't let it happen. Someone was there to stop these stories. And now the New York Times has brought it up again. And, whatever you think of TTSA, I'm not totally supportive of what seems to be, all of their agenda, but they're definitely stirring things up and getting things rolling here in some ways that wouldn't have happened without them. But yeah, the media has to flip around and start seeing this as a real opportunity to educate their audience, to do what they're really supposed to do, right? Is ask the tough questions.
You would hope. You would hope.
Yeah, I mean, they have been so lame in the past couple of decades. I remember even since I was a kid in the 70s, it's gotten extremely superficial. That's what I did my freaking dissertation on in sociology at Washington State University, is the fractal flattening of media and information since World War II. And I analyzed articles, and I could prove mathematically they had gotten increasingly superficial. But if you take the bigger point of view, you ask the hard questions. If they start doing this again, and I think, weren't we told with the first New York Times article that was their most emailed article in recent times?
Since 9/11.
Right. So that's big. So if they get a big audience out of this, and they realize we're doing our job and we're actually paying the bills this way, right? People are reading our newspaper again and paying attention. The other media will have to jump on it. And I'll tell you something. If they don't, we're just going to move around them and keep creating our own media on YouTube, on social media, Twitter. We'll just create an alternative media and leave them behind in the dust, right? I don't have the pieces or parts, but I've met the people who've touched it and handled it. And that is big, right? And when those people start talking, they're not talking yet. They still feel like they signed some NDA or something, but at some point they will come forward over the next couple of years. People I've talked to about this who still don't want to come forward into the public limelight. And they've seen something in the course of their military duties, or they've been consulted with by the government to explain how this metamaterial, allegedly extraterrestrial, I mean, it's definitely not materials that you're going to find here on Earth. It's from somewhere else. So when those people start talking, it's not me. It's people that you will recognize once they come forward. They are big names, known for doing big things. I have tried to get them on YouTube. I've tried to get them to talk, and they don't want to. So I respect that, and I will not be, revealing their names until they're comfortable with that. But I'm telling you, when these people come forward and you find out who they are and that they've been consulted about this and they say it has to be ET, there's no other explanation they can think of, that's when the whole thing has to move. And if the media won't roll with that, they're just useless, right? Let's just leave them behind.
Well, you would hope so. You would hope so. You would think that would be the process. But you know what? Let's move on. Let's move on here because I got a bunch of stories that I want to talk to you about, and I know our audience really wants to get into crop circles here, my friend. Another one of those phenomena that we don't know really what the heck is going on. Why is it happening? Who is it happening to? Who is making these? Are they signals? Are they man-made? Are they fresh? Are they fake? What are they? That's what we need to know. And you're the man to figure this out, so that's why we got you here.
Yeah. The crop circles actually, that came out of remote viewing. I had a crop circle as a target in one of the classes I took, and I really wanted to find out what I'd been viewing. I got a lot of interesting data in the section, and I figured the only way to find out was to go over. And I met someone, a guy named Ron Russell, was doing crop circle tours there back in the 90s, and I went with him over to the UK, and I discovered that far from being urban legend, which is sort of what I guess I might have suspected, there really was something going on there. Immediately you could see people's cameras and batteries were affected in the vicinity of these crop formations. These are in wheat and other grain crops, and they're large. And I didn't see it the first year I went over to my cameras, but later on I began noticing it to my own cameras and people that I've taken into crop circles in subsequent years, and basically really weird electromagnetic anomalies in and around the crop circles. Now, originally, we didn't think humans could do these, right? They're big, they show up in a couple hours at night. And I was eventually approached by people claiming to be able to do it, and they said, hey, Do you want us to prove to you that humans could do it? And I thought, these are hoaxers. They won't be able to do it. But they did a decent job with the first one that I saw. And I wrote about that in my book, Opening Minds, actually going out with these people at night, not with the farmer's permission. This was not a legal circle. They just said, look, this isn't going to be legal, but you'll know for certain whether we can do it. And they showed me that they could do it. And I was able to, stand there and watch them make this circle. So the big surprise from all of this is even the man-made ones had these electromagnetic effects. Your camera would stop working, would act in weird ways. Maybe it wouldn't work ever again. We've had camcorders and things melt from the inside, being inside crop circles. I've heard this from professional film crews, National Geographic, BBC, and others. There's a really strange phenomena around the crop circles, and it's not critical actually who made it. At least that's my belief. I got to know more of these circle making teams and so forth. These circle makers were actually believers in the phenomena, and that's what a lot of people don't get. They believe that they create supernatural effects once they're there, and that was their motivation for doing it. So the phenomenon is more complex than people thought, but it's electronically, energetically real. Now, whether some of them were originally created by flying discs, I have met witnesses who've seen UFOs flatten meadows and grasses and things. They've seen it happen. Not actual crop circle patterns. I haven't talked to a witness, but who's seen that. But there is a connection to the UFO phenomena, but there's also people involved in doing it too. That's my take on it.
Okay, so the people who are making these, how long does it take for them to make them?
Usually, it could go, depending on the size, it could be as short as 2 hours. It can go to 5 hours with a big pattern. It depends on how many people you have out in the field. And all of these guys, they're mostly guys that I talked to, all started out doing really simple circles, small circles, just to see if they could do it. It was really more kind of curiosity. Some of them were actually curious if they would attract UFOs and light orbs and anomalous phenomena if they went out and made them. So it kind of started with curiosity. And then they realized, hey, this looks pretty good. So they were trying to interact with the phenomena. And they found that, people would come in and have experiences there. So they just started making them bigger year by year, getting more people on their teams and getting better at it. They would find ways to communicate in the field with tugs of ropes and stuff like that. They're pretty shrewd people. Occasionally walkie-talkies, lasers could be used very briefly just to get straight lines and things. And they just got better and better and better at it, and they enjoyed it. So they could make them faster over time. And I didn't originally believe that, Dave. Honestly, I didn't think humans could do this. I mean, if you had listened to my lectures in the late 90s, I would have gotten up there on stage and saying, listen, it's impossible for humans to do this. We've had our survey teams say it would take a couple days in the daytime, right? Architectural firms, but they weren't doing it the way these guys would do it. They were just very inventive artists, graphic designers who enjoy the process of design and creation. And the ones I met I wouldn't call them hoaxers. They're not there to fool. They just really enjoyed the process of going out in the dark and having their own kind of contact experience and leaving something behind that created a lot of magical feelings for people. I realize the farmers, we're not mostly happy with that, but some do charge admission. But it's certainly in the areas it brings in a lot of tourists and stuff. So there's a couple ways to look at it.
Okay, what would be the purpose of faking one of these? Is it to mock the community or is it art?
No, the people that I know, the teams that I met, didn't see what they're doing as fake. They saw it as real. And I would have to agree. We originally started with a static meter, and we got very high static charges that were not in the open field with the standing stock. We would get very high static readings as soon as we went in. So they didn't see themselves as doing anything negative. They saw it as, some of them, as they told me, they call it natural magic. Natural magic. It's a way to take a natural material. It's a kind of hybrid between nature and technology. It's a natural plant that's been domesticated, right? And then you're doing something artistic with it, and you end up attracting woo. You end up attracting woo, as you call it, because they told me, they've said they've seen balls of light in the formations as they're making them. Occasionally, they've been chased out of fields by balls of light. You know what's going on there. They've seen small, black, triangular craft, not the huge ones, just things that might be 6 feet on the side. Shadow people and space-time anomalies. All of the features that we see in some of these exotic metamaterials, by the way. I actually think there's a connection to UFO materials from the design of these crop circles. I would say, Dave, for the most part, they feel driven to do it. I mean, who else is going to go out there for hours in the dark, risk getting caught by the farmer or their security team, and you're not getting paid? And there's a risk that you could injure yourself, fall down in the dark. So they're driven to do it. They felt like they should do it. And even Doug and Dave, you know, the two guys from the pub that people said couldn't do it. They did an interview with the BBC, and Colin Andrews often pointed this out. They're the crop circle researcher, you know, someone I've gotten to know. And he said, the very last line I read it in their interview, they said, we always thought something was making us do it. So if you look at their own words, they're sincere about this. They don't see it as hoax, at least the people I know. Now, there may be some groups out there that were deliberately, trying to create something and fool people, but not the groups that I met, maybe 20, 30 of these circle makers over the years, and they're sincere. They see it as a real type of supernatural art. It's their way of connecting to the multiverse. And I have to say, for them, that's what it is. And people experience really interesting and anomalous things in and around crop circles. I've had it happen myself. So I would have to say that seeing them as man-made or real is kind of an artificial distinction. To me, the man-made ones are real. Now, it may not have been the beginning of the phenomena, but more and more people started doing this in the late 80s and 90s. I think by the time I got there, and I don't want to, disappoint people, by the time I got there in 97, I think they were almost all constructed by these teams. The ones that I saw, the Coke Snowflake by Silbury Hill and everything up from then. There are a few every year that don't look like those, that look like they just formed spontaneously, but they're a lot smaller. And not quite as neat.
We've got about a minute to go here before we got to go to break at the top of the hour. Simeon Hein is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio talking crop circles. If these people are being told to make this, would this make it some sort of psychic anomaly that this is happening, Simeon?
Yes, I think that's a very good way to look at it, because some of them have told me they'd be lying there in bed, right? And they would get this image in their mind and feel compelled to go out and do it. I mean, does that happen to you or me? I mean, it hasn't happened to me. I don't feel compelled to go out in a wheat field just before I'm going to bed. They would feel compelled, sometimes by themselves, only to find out that there was a group nearby meditating on that exact symbol near the field that they just felt like they should go to. Now, what is going on there? It's some sort of spontaneous psychic transfer. So, yeah, it's coming from a bigger place, and we need to be more open-minded about it.
All right, let's talk about crop circles when we come back, Simeon, because we're going to hop out for a break here on Spaced Out Radio at the top of the hour here. 1 hour down, 2 hours to go on the mighty SOR, and we got a lot to talk about with Dr. Simeon Hein tonight as we are getting into crop circles some more. Are there alien type of crop circles? If so, what are they? Are they navigation signs? Are they just pieces of art to screw us up? Remote viewing as well, and wherever the conversation takes us with your questions. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best-rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Hi. This is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
Hi there, this is the paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall. I'd like to invite you to listen in each Sunday night where we're going to open up your eyes to everything strange and paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect us all, such as UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. Let's learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get Bumblefoot?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott, and I talk aliens. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates across North America and on the digital side on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. Don't forget, if you can make it, check it on out, hit subscribe. You can check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Abselophesia. Abselophesia is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on the Mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking with Dr. Simeon Hein. We're getting into crop circles right now. His website, SimeonHein.com. And you had just something really, really obscure happen when we started switching the conversation over to crop circles. Tell us about it.
Right. Well, I'm staying with some friends in Central Washington, and my host pointed out, she said, what's that over there? Just when we started talking about the crop circles, and it was this array of red flashing lights across a really large distance of sky, very high up, that I've never seen anything like it in my life. So either a large structure or a group of objects moving across the sky, pretty high up, but spread out, that would cover like the width of your thumb to your fingers if you held it at a distance, like that size. I can't quite conceive how something that big can be moving like that, but it was an array of about 5-6 red flashing lights across a large distance of sky. So in some sort of pattern. So quite strange. It was moving in the south sky, and I just don't, I'm thinking drones or something, but it's pretty high up. I don't think drones are flying 5 miles up like that. So it'd be probably 45 degrees up in the sky, really far up there, but we both saw it. And again, that's a new one for me. Big group of red flashing lights across a vast distance of sky moving as a group. So maybe one of our listeners knows what that is. Yeah. So that was it, Dave. That's what we saw a few minutes ago. Just when we
How long did it last?
I saw it for about a minute, and I was listening to your questions, so I wanted to focus in. I saw it for about a minute. My host here saw it for a few more minutes than me, moving across the sky from east to southeast. A big quadrant of sky. So,
was it just a straight line, or was it in any shape, like a triangle or anything?
There's a cluster of flashing red lights across a large space. I didn't see it as a line. They would just kind of blink, and it appeared to me like a group of objects. But, bright flashing, then off, bright flashing, then off. It was really strange.
Behind, and then.
Yeah.
So,
and who is this young lady talking in the background?
Oh, she's my host here. She was the one that saw it. So.
Very nice.
She's listening into the interview. We're out on the porch in the back here, and she's the one that pointed it out. Yeah, it would move like one, and then a couple of miles. I would say the distance of the whole thing looked about 5 to 10 miles apart of the objects. A big chunk of sky, really large and high up. So that's, very hard to explain, but what we just saw. But there you go, Dave. There are things in the universe we don't understand. That's my whole point. And we just had an experience of that. So, and I'm sure our listeners have had similar experiences. It doesn't fit with anything you understand.
Yes, that never seems to happen. There is no understanding of all of this, and it's kind of weird that it happens right when we start talking about crop circles and aliens. Are there crop circles out there that you believe have been created by an extraterrestrial presence?
Well, there have been definitely circles that are connected to flying discs and UFOs. We had the Tully saucer nest, I believe, in the late 60s, where people saw discs land, and then they went to investigate, and they found these reeds swirled in a pattern. And I've talked to farmers, one from Canada a number of years ago, I think Alberta. He said that they had crop circles show up and then a whole bunch of cow mutilations on the farm. They're very, really hard to explain what that's about. So there, if you look in the history of it, people have seen crop circles form or in the vicinity of balls of light, right? Plasmas. Very interesting subject in and of itself, because it's not just ball lightning. This is something that you can create, you can play with in a lab. People like Kenneth Shoulders, one of the researchers in this area, who invented microelectronics, by the way, called them exotic vacuum objects. They're actually quantum objects that affect space-time in their vicinity, and people have seen swirled circles where these balls of light, these exotic vacuum objects, I'm convinced that's what they are. Where those are seen, you get some of these patterns in the weeds. So there are these connections. Over time, people saw these and said, it's natural for humans to say, can we make it better? Can we make it bigger, right? Can we put more of a wow factor in it? And of course, when you got the media helicopters coming over, artists love attention, obviously, even if they haven't signed them. They get a lot of media attention. It's just sort of a thing they kept doing for years. A lot of them have stopped. It takes a lot of work to be out there at night. I've done it with them I've observed a couple times, and it's a lot of work, and it goes right until the sun comes up. It's not really my thing anymore to stay up that late all night. Nicely, that's what these people did for us for all these years, and they created these conditioned spaces where we got a lot of anomalies. So I see it as a continuation of the original phenomena. I don't see it as artificial. I don't see it as hoaxing, unless some of them were intending to fool people. But the ones I know weren't. They're serious about it as a supernatural art form. And I'm convinced what they showed us is that, we live with parallel realities in a multiverse. There are other realities next to ours. I think that's what quantum mechanics is increasingly showing us, that there's a whole nother way to look at physics in terms of parallel realities. And these circles, because of their geometrical precision, act like kind of the lens and allow energy information to come in from these parallel realities. At least that's my idea about it. So I think the whole thing is natural, whether it's UFOs make them, balls of light, or people. It's still the same sort of phenomena with very interesting effects. Again, we see batteries go out, cameras act in weird ways. It's hard to even explain what your electronics is doing after it's been in these circles. And on YouTube, just so people can watch, if you go through, I have a playlist on my YouTube channel. You can just look it up, Simeon Hein, crop circle weirdness. And you can see the videos of people's cameras just going on the fritz. And I've talked to these people. They said sometimes they didn't work again for months, even with new battery changes. So it's fascinating. It's a fascinating subject.
Well, let me ask you about, without getting too woo about this, what about the radiation? There are people who claim that in these crop circles, there is a form of radiation that seems to give off detection to radiation meters. Have you seen this happen, and what do you think that radiation is from?
No, I haven't seen that happen. I've been around people with Geiger detectors, and they haven't detected that type of ionizing radiation when I've been around there. there have been like magnetic anomalies, like in the Milton Hill Farms formation of 2001. Formation, according to my, sources, was made by 5 people. But the important point was that exactly this pattern of 4 circles around one of these Celtic tumuli, these kind of raised earth mounds, that people went through with a magnetometer, Colin Andrews, and an engineer, French engineer. They found a magnetic pattern that almost exactly matched the pattern of the wheat, which means taking what appears to be an inert insulator material like wheat and just twisting it in a very precise spiral generates a magnetic field. So that's what we've seen is magnetic fields being generated. People have reported they go in with a compass and the needle it's no longer pointing north or spinning around. So there are these weird anomalies. I would point out anomalies that are similar to UFO encounters and so forth, even some Bigfoot encounters where you get the car stalling, batteries failing. I think it's the same phenomena. I mean, I'm just going to go out there on a limb, but I think when you get these bleed through from parallel realities and these other sort of phenomena kind of come through, it creates sort of havoc in our electromagnetic spectrum. Not ionizing radiation, again, well, not mostly. Obviously, some UFOs do leave people with burns for some possibly interesting reasons. But in general, an electromagnetic anomaly that, again, as we were saying right in the beginning of the show, whatever the phenomena is, you seem to get these same patterns. And in my mind, that is indicative of kind of bleed through from parallel realities. But by the way, this comes out of quantum mechanics. We're not bringing something in from left field. We're just talking about the simplest way to look at quantum mechanics is parallel realities. You might have heard of this guy, Hugh Everett, at Princeton, who brought this up in the 50s as a way to look at physics, the many worlds interpretation it's called. And he was discouraged from looking at this. But there's newer interpretations that people have said, wait, it sort of makes sense. And it's a simpler way of looking at quantum mechanics that you get a lot of possibilities. And we're seeing slices of it. But that doesn't mean the other slices don't exist. And I think these phenomena bring together these different slices in ways that we don't totally understand, but create a lot of these electromagnetic phenomena that we see, including the crop circle. That's my take on it, Dave. You don't have to agree with that, but that's how I see it.
Okay, so do you believe then that these phenomena are being caused by maybe different people, different aliens, different groups coming out of different dimensions?
I think that's something we definitely have to consider as a possibility. Because in some of these phenomena, it like shows up to some people and disappears. Even people in the vicinity, you don't see it, but a group of people facing a certain angle or something will see it. So, yeah, I think we need to consider, and again, this has been brought up recently by that experiment in Antarctica, right? You heard about that, the Anita experiment, where they're looking at neutrons coming in and they detect neutrinos, they detect a weird neutrino that's coming the opposite direction from up inside the Earth. And one reasonable explanation, it's a possibility, but that's what you look at in science, is that we're next to other parallel realities, and some of the energy of those parallel realities bleeds through. And that neutrino detection that they've been looking at, they got the data over years, but it takes a long time to look at it. That Anita experiment in Antarctica, people called it the backwards parallel reality. That was one reasonable explanation. Not just from that experiment. We're talking about going back decades of relativistic field theory in quantum mechanics, starting with Paul Dirac, by the way. People have been, this is what people don't understand. Quantum physicists, well-known quantum physicists, Nobel Prize winners, people like Paul Dirac have been proposing other realities, other sets of particles than what we normally see. Paul Dirac suggested the idea of antimatter, right? Well, back then, people thought that was really weird. Like, every particle that we knew had a counter particle that was the opposite charge. Well, guess what? Antimatter is now accepted as real, and it's produced by thunderstorms a couple hundred times a day across the Earth. Antimatter is produced. Just talking about how science develops. Well, when Paul Dirac developed these ideas, they didn't even have the word antimatter, but that's what it became known as, and now we have evidence for it. It takes a while for the evidence to match up with the ideas. People have been proposing other realities where things are coming to us and interacting with us. And we're seeing experiments now about that. So, yeah, I think it's quite possible, and I'm completely serious about this, we don't totally understand the earth that we live on. There are other realities here on the earth that maybe we don't see them, but they see us. And perhaps they can even come here sometimes. Or sometimes it may just happen spontaneously, and you get things like ghosts and spirits. I mean, you brought up Bigfoot in the beginning of the show just in passing, part of the phenomena that we're interested in. Where does Bigfoot go when a group of people see it, and then it just, he or she disappears, and other people in the area don't see it? Where is that creature going? You have to suggest, be open to the possibility it's a parallel reality, that this creature can come from wherever they are into our reality, the right sort of space. We can now see them. Our light reflects off them. They interact with our matter, and then they go back wherever they are, and we don't see them again. Again, as we mentioned in the beginning of the show, dark matter, dark energy. Physicists already say we can't detect 95% of the universe. So what is that other 95%? Is some of that Bigfoot and spirits and what we call UFOs? I'm not saying all these UFOs are just local and coming from a parallel reality in our space. Some of them really could be extraterrestrial. I'm just saying this discussion has been in the back burner since Paul Dirac. Yang and Lee, Nobel Prize winners from Stony Brook in New York, Brookhaven National Lab, on Long Island, also proposed what they call the hidden sector, because there were particles that the math showed should exist, but they couldn't find them. So they said maybe there's a hidden sector. And what does that sound like to you? I think things are coming out of this hidden sector, and that's what we call paranormal. I think that's the physics behind it. That's the way I look at it.
Okay, so where do these creatures exist then? And why would they be popping in and out of here? What is your theory on this?
They would exist in sort of an alternate Earth reality in the same space as ours, but at a different frequency, and we don't generally pick them up. And they may have some innate ability to hop between parallel realities that you and I simply haven't figured out how to do, or maybe we forgot. And this could be a natural ability to move between parallel realities. And these beings and creatures can show up at ours, sometimes scare the dickens out of us, and then leave again. And they're not coming from outside our reality. They're coming from another frequency, if you will, a hidden sector, as some of these physicists have called it. And this would be why you have something like dark matter, where you have this gravitational force of some other reality, but you can never see it, but you can detect it gravitationally. They're coming from this dark matter universe. I mean, this is where physics is going. There are people doing tests on this right now, and they're serious about it. We're talking about UFO disclosure at the beginning. Well, this actually goes back to physics. We haven't had a really open discussion about the implications of quantum mechanics. This is where it leads. We're not in the shut up and calculate phase anymore, which was a famous phrase that people had about quantum mechanics. Just do the math and don't think about what it means. Well, let's say we think about what it means. It might lead to these paranormal phenomena, and we'll realize they come out of the physics. They just seem paranormal because we didn't understand it. That's at least one realistic way to look at it.
Okay. That's heavy. Honestly, that's a lot of woo right there, man. A lot of woo.
I know. Listen, Dave, people have been proposing this since the 40s and 50s, and they're always drummed out of the physics community, just like happened to Hugh Everett. He got sick of the persecution and the ridicule he got from the Copenhagen School of Quantum Mechanics. They thought, look, don't ask, don't tell. We know that quantum mechanics predicts a lot of possibilities for any particular, the activity of any particular subatomic particle, or any object, collection of particles, but don't ask what's going on there. You're just seeing one version of it and the other ones disappear. And Everett said, maybe they don't disappear. He got that idea from Einstein because he took some lectures from Einstein at Princeton, and Einstein said, where are all these other realities? Where do they go? I can't believe that the moon only exists when a mouse comes out of its hole at night to look at the sky and then disappears again. It can't be that we're just creating it with our consciousness. It has to exist independent of the mouse. And reality has to exist independent of people. So people started looking at the other ways of looking at quantum mechanics, and they ended up with parallel realities. And you and I only found out about this about 5 years ago, looking back at the history of quantum mechanics, but now it's becoming popular, is that there are other ways of looking at quantum mechanics which are actually simpler, which don't have to involve having a conscious observer collapsing the waveform or anything like that. This version of quantum mechanics, austere quantum mechanics as people call it, AQM, says all the realities exist. You and I may only be perceiving a sliver of it, a slice of it, like this frequency that we're talking on right now, and our listeners are listening on the radio station. But the other radio stations exist, even if you're not tuned into them. And they bleed through. You remember how AM radio used to get this bleed through, you know, in the old days when we or I'm talking that model, bleed through from other stations that maybe society didn't tell you was real as a kid, but we're finding out, well, where are all these phenomena coming from? Why do so many people see Bigfoot again and again in these UFOs? And some of these UFOs seem to just dematerialize. Where do they go? You know, they don't just seem like solid objects, you know, like the Tic Tac or something. They seem kind of like strange, like Jacques Vallée has pointed out. These are kind of weird objects that kind of show up and they disappear. Some of them don't seem like completely solid. So I'm just suggesting that since we've had a lot of really good quality physicists since the 20s proposing hidden sectors and antimatter and other places, and we've had cosmology and astrophysics saying, where's all this dark matter? Where's this dark matter coming from if we can't detect it, but we can see it gravitationally? And dark energy, the bulk of the energy in the universe, what's that about? We just have to conclude that what we see around us is just a sliver of reality, and that would mean there are other realities there. You got to fill in the gap. And they sometimes show up here. Now, just because you and I can't go there doesn't mean they can't come here. And I think they are, and I think they do. And I think that's what we're going to realize out of all this. We are next to at least a couple parallel realities on Earth, and there's bleed through sometimes. I think there's bleed through. And there might be. Yeah, that's Simeon's model of the universe.
Let's get to an audience question here while we have about 90 seconds here before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. And this comes from Gnome Squatch in our YouTube chat. What hidden messages do you think crop circles contain?
You know, it's a really interesting question. I don't know if there's a deliberate message in them, but they have a heck of a lot of mathematical precision. And the first time I saw crop circles, they reminded me of all those fractal objects that I studied in graduate school. Back when that was considered like a forbidden topic, believe you me, that was not popular stuff when I started studying chaos theory. That was like forbidden stuff, but I persisted. I'm glad I stuck with it, right? Later on, it became used for fractal image compression. It became really practical, but back then it was weird. But the point is, there's a lot of mathematical precision in crop circles, and I think that teaches us about, you know, how the universe is put together and how it's much more malleable than it looks, right? That even something like wheat can become a conductor. That's freaky. An insulator can switch to being a conductor if it's in the right mathematical braiding and spiral twisting. It becomes sort of like another substance. That's amazing. That's the basis of topological insulators, which you're going to read about. Any science magazine you pick up, they're going to be, whoa, latest in topological insulators. I think the crop circles are topological insulators, really conductors. They're our type of conductor. And so it shows us that sort of kind of discovery to answer the question. Good question.
All right. I think that's a good place to end it right now while we get ready to go for a break here at the bottom of the hour. Dr. Simeon Hein is our guest tonight. We're talking crop circles. We're going to get to more of your questions. We still haven't even dabbled into remote viewing yet. And I promise you, we are going to get into that, of course, because we got to see what it's like. I'm going to remote view the next half hour of the show. Yes, it's coming clearer. We're going to get into remote viewing, just like I just saw in my mind, here on Spaced Out Radio with Dr. Simeon Hein next.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thaw, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know little brother is watching.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month, and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
We're taking Sunday nights out of this world on Spaced Out Radio. This is Michael W. Hall, also known as the Paranormal Lawyer. Together, we're going to go on an exciting journey into the unknown. I'm going to bring you some of the best interviews in the paranormal and supernatural to start your new week off on a freaky note. So tune in to Spaced Out Sundays with me, Michael W. Hall, only on spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including Rocking Out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow the Woo on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking with Dr. Simeon Hein. We are talking crop circles, aliens, UFOs, remote viewing, which we're going to get into next. This man studies it all, and that's why he is very well respected in this field. Simeon, welcome back.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
No problem. From crop circles to remote viewing, this is one of your passions that you have in your life. Why are you so attracted to it?
It was really unexpected and surprising that something like that would work. I mean, you would think by the time you reach a certain age that you're kind of aware of your abilities, of what you can do and what you can't do, and to find out that everyone has this ability to see through space and time and get an accurate description of a distant location or a person. I mean, no one ever told me about this in decades of being in school, and here it worked. I saw it right in front of my eyes. I saw other people getting results. Then you research it and find out that the military was employing it and their own program, the U.S. government, and also the Soviet government, Chinese. They all had their own psychic programs going. And you see some of the results of some of these really talented psychics, people, like Ingo Swann or Pat Price or Joe McMonagle, who's still with us. And you wonder, what does this tell us about reality? The fact that someone can see and accurately describe an event that hasn't happened yet, that might not even happen for a week or two into the future, so-called future, or describe a distant location with super accuracy sometimes. It's just startling. And it makes you reevaluate reality from, bottom to top. How does this whole thing work? It totally shatters the idea of linear time, Newtonian forces. I mean, apparently our awareness can jump around in space and time and, again, even get accurate information about things that haven't even happened yet. So I'm sure, the audience has been exposed to different people who've done this in the data. We don't need to go through it all again, but every time these studies are done, many of them, you get these really astounding results after, testing thousands of people or doing thousands of trials, like it was done at the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Lab for 20 years, where you get these really off-the-chart statistical significance showing you that this is not just by chance, that people are really able to foresee something in distance or even affect something at a distance, micro PK, move a dial around or the electrical flow in a device with their intention. It's startling and it's incredible. And it's something that, again, I wasn't expecting after graduate school to discover something that totally blew open, my paradigms. But hey, why not? It's all part of the package. So it's okay. But that's why I'm fascinated by it. And I love, I've been, teaching classes in it since, the late 90s. And it's always great to get someone there new who doesn't know they can do this. And you do some, you teach them the protocols, and all of a sudden they're reproducing this photo that you haven't shown them until they're completely done. You didn't tell them anything. And there they drew it, described it, often in funny ways. And it just shows you there's more, again, going back to this theme that we're talking about, there's more going on than you're aware of. What you think is reality is just a fraction of the whole thing. And RV shows us that you're aware of more than you think you're aware of. And you can actually decode it, write it down. So.
Well, that's one of the things that we need to look at when it comes to this, because for the most part, I don't think many of us realize how our mind works and what our own personal mind can do or accomplish, because we feel that we're always so limited.
Yes, we have this feeling of being limited, and it's partly because our conscious mind is limited. You know, the work in brain physiology shows us that we only are conscious of a tiny fraction of a percentage of all the information that comes into our awareness, even just through our physical senses every second. It's on the order of, 16 bits out of 40 million. 40 million's coming in, and your conscious mind is aware of 16 bits, about the depth of a CD file when you play a song. But the other information is there. You're not conscious of it, but it's there. So if you do some sort of training technique, there are different RV techniques. I'm not prone to say one works better than the other. They all work. And some people are better at one type than the other. I learned the structured CRV system that Ingo Swann created, but I think they all work. And it's proven that people use non-structured systems and still get great results. So the point is that you have more information available to you than you think you have. That's really the startling point. And if you relax your conscious mind's insistence on knowing what's going on and just kind of going with the flow of the session, what really looks like magic shows up on your page. I can't describe it any other way. You can get people describing the target so well that you need to do research to find out what's at the site because you couldn't see it all from the picture. And then you find out what they saw inside that building or from another angle is actually there. And you didn't even know it. You couldn't have known it because the picture didn't show it. But you have to go online or do more research into these sites, and they were absolutely right. Now, how did they do that? Again, I think it goes back to the idea that there's just a lot more going on than we're conscious of. And I think it almost proves that they're parallel realities, just in the sense that how could you view something in the so-called future that doesn't exist now unless it already did exist somewhere, right? How could you do that unless it already existed now, but not quite in our reality, some sort of parallel, what we call the future, parallel reality. And they're viewing it. I mean, people have done tests with this, with just kind of experiments. Sometimes people do it with the financial markets, just picking, a certain index up or down every week, and they get like 65-70% hit rate, way better than anyone on Wall Street is doing. And they're doing it by themselves, and they're getting it right week after week, thousands of trials. No way that's by chance. So that, if they're getting access to the future, that must mean in some sense it already exists, and they're getting some of the information through. Again, they're doing it for learning, for knowledge, and they're not insisting on the outcome, for a narrow reason, and it works. Russell Tarrant's group did it a whole bunch of times, and, for an investor, made a bunch of money that way, helped put up. Again, they did it as for part of scientific research, and they showed that you can do it that way. So the whole field is just really fascinating and shows us there's just more going on. Let me just say one thing about it. A lot of people at night when they go to sleep, they dream, right? RV is like a structured daydreaming. It's like that, but it's structured while you're awake. That's the closest thing I can say what it feels like. It's like a daydream with structure. And it turns out to be correct, which is the opposite of what society has told us, which is that daydream is some sort of nebulous fantasizing, right? Just your imagination. Well, it turns out to be extremely accurate sometimes. And many people have had experiences with that, just intuitively. When they get a feeling like they should call a friend or something's happened with the family they haven't talked to them, they call them, there was a reason for them to call, a good reason. So we all have this built into us already. It's just society in general hasn't encouraged us to pay attention to it. And in fact, a couple hundred years ago, people were persecuted for showing these abilities. So.
Okay. With that, can anybody do this? Is this something that is just only certain people can, of a certain mind frame, a certain technique, or is this open to anyone?
I think anybody can learn to do it. Now, some people are naturally talented and will really excel at it, and Some people have had accidents or near-death experiences, which mysteriously make people better at this, which is quite interesting. Joe McMonagle comes to mind. And then there are people like Bevy Yeagers, who, she passed on a couple years ago, but she was a fantastic psychic. But she always told us she did a lot of work with police departments and missing persons. And she would tell us that she wasn't a natural. She had to teach herself how to do this, and it took a lot of practice. But she became very, very good. I think she told us she was able to, with her group, the U.S. Psi Squad, as they call this, based out of St. Louis, they were able to solve 80% of their cases. So I think it's just a question of practice. By the way, people I've seen who can do PK, move objects around at a distance or melt things with their hands, something like whatever that energy is, seems to be related, often have said they had to train themselves. They weren't born, it wasn't natural. So they're naturals like Ingo Swan and Pat Price, people that Russell Targ and Halputoff worked with at SRI, who are natural, superstar psychics, right? And there are other people who have to train to get good at it. And most people can do a lot better than they expect. I would put myself in that category. I'm not super good at it, but it's a lot of fun. And I can do it just like the average person can do it if they take some time to train themselves. So there's a range of ability, and I think it can be taught. Again, I think it's something that's built into us because we're all connected to the larger, quantum field of reality. We're connected to something bigger. When we walk around and we look at ourselves, we look disconnected. But what RV shows us that in some other way, we're connected to the whole thing in a way we can't see. And the information, if you put some intention into it, can flow to you from apparently distant locations and times. So it's a whole different model. But here's where it connects to these other topics, Dave, that's so interesting. People that have UFO encounters and other unexplained encounters with phenomena they don't understand often get these sort of psychic repercussions. Again, which leads me to believe that they're connected. People have psychic kind of intuitions before they've had UFO encounters, or afterwards they find that they have these abilities they didn't have before. When I talked with Jacques Vallée once, he mentioned that this is often not reported in these UFO cases because no one bothered to ask the witnesses, but they almost had things happen before the sighting which were strange, and afterwards they had some abilities they didn't have before. So again, it's just, I think the underlying model is related between these phenomena. But just taking RV on its own, it shows us that we can move our awareness around in space and time. To answer your question, I think everyone can do it to some degree, but you have to let yourself do it. It's almost like our socialization and education drill it out of us. Because every time you've been in school, since kindergarten, you've been told to justify your answers. How did you come up with that answer? Show us what your train of thought was. When you do RV, it's spontaneous. You don't even know how you came up with that drawing of that building or that person or that event. It just seems to pop in there, and you have to let it happen. So it's a whole different way, kind of what we say, kind of a right brain way, holistic way of interacting with energy and information. And it's just a fascinating process. It's a lot of fun, and often people tell me it's extremely practical after they've learned how to do it. So in their business and their personal life and so forth.
Dr. Simeon Hein is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. When it comes to remote viewing and what we are seeing, how can anybody do this? Like, if you were to teach me and the audience a 3-step program on how to do this, could you?
Yeah. It actually sounds pretty simple, but it's harder to do in practice. And I'll tell you what the basic rule is, at least in CRV, coordinate remote viewing. The rule is don't edit anything out once you start the session. Literally, every thought that you get during the session, you put your intention on describing what you're going to be shown when the session is done, right? And there's a sort of procedure where you open up this aperture to your own awareness. You become more sensitive, kind of like the idea of subliminal information. It's right there at the surface, but we're normally so busy, we're just not paying attention. So during the session, you write down everything that comes to you in a kind of a structure on the page. That's part of what the warning involves. You already know how to do this. It's a question of, can you write it down without editing out the really subtle stuff that's coming from your unconscious mind, which seems to have this kind of connection to this larger quantum matrix that we live in, right? Where you transcend space and time. So the learning, Dave, actually comes from forgetting a lot of bad habits you've had since you were a kid, not your fault, where you started editing out things that you were told didn't fit, right? Daydreaming, imagination. It's that realm where this RV information comes from. So the instruction actually involves learning not to edit so much. And when you do that, you get in this kind of zone, this state of flow, where somehow you lock into the frequency of that event or person or place or object, wherever it is in space and time. And through some subterranean process we can't see, the information flows to you, kind of like tuning into a radio station. And you're locked into it, you get some information, you write it down before your conscious mind starts editing it out, and that's sort of the essence of the training. The more you do that, the more easier it is to get in the flow. It's almost kind of like an athletic skill with your awareness. And let me say one more thing. It's not all coming from your mind, your brain. You get the feelings throughout your body. Those are real important data, too. So it's kind of broadening the aperture away just from your logical, linear mind and letting other types of information come in that normally you would be editing out just because, well, you know, there's so much coming in, you can't pay attention to everything. So that's sort of the essence of it, if that makes any sense.
What can you see? And how do you see?
Well, let me say one thing. It's been called remote viewing, but I think that's a misnomer. I like to call it resonant viewing because I don't think the information's remote. It's kind of like the radio signals are here in the space around you and me, but we're not tuned into them. But once you tune into them, it's like the information was like actually next to you, even if it was coming from a distant source. And I'm not sure it's really viewing. It's more like sensing. Because, Dave, not everyone sees things. And I think sometimes people expect to see visual images, but everyone's different. You know, there's this great book called Brain Rules by John Medina, this researcher at University of Washington, Seattle. And in this book, he talks about how we're all wired differently. And when I went through that book, it made a lot of sense in terms of our RV experience because the school systems you and I went to all kind of treated us all the same, right? But the truth is we're all kind of different, and we all perceive differently. And some people are much better at smells or hearing or tactile, and some people do get visual images. I'll tell you one thing about it. It's really faint. It is faint. It's fainter than your imagination, but it is there. That's what the training is about. There's a viewing screen in the back of your mind. At least that's how I experience it. So very dim images show up there, and you are trained. I know it's faint, but write it down anyway, and when we're done, we'll see if it fits with what's on the target or not. It's no biggie. You always learn from every session, and you don't get all of them to match up, but you get a bunch of them. And the more you kind of go with that flow and pay attention to that very faint signal, you'll find that it's accurate. And what it does when you do that is in your daily life, you'll start paying attention to fainter signals, realizing that they can be very accurate, you know, impressions about people and events and circumstances you're in. That there's I'm getting a little hit of something, you should pay attention to it. That's what the RV training trains you to do. Pay attention to fainter signals because it's the logical, linear part of our mind that's really loud. You know, this talking voice, the part of me that's talking to you now. That loud part is not the viewing part. It's a subtler, more fainter signal back there that you are kind of, you've already got the radio, you need to learn how to tune it. That's the analogy I'd use.
That's actually a pretty good analogy. What is it used for? What's the purpose?
Okay, so, whoa, sorry. There was a huge falling star here, and it flashed really bright.
Nice. You're on a roll there tonight.
That was really something. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so I'll start out. I think the biggest use is to get to know yourself better. Again, we've been talking that reality. A lot of it has been hidden from us, and there's more going on than we have thought, right? These phenomena.
Right.
It's the same thing with your own awareness, is to get to know your awareness better and to learn what's signal and what's noise. So that's my kind of general Simeon answer for that question. But obviously, the military didn't develop it as a kind of a feel-good personal growth technique, right? Even though that's how I like to, think about it now as personal growth and development of your own abilities and skills. People have used it for very practical purposes, locating things, locating people. Obviously, the military wanted to use it with conjunction with other intelligence resources. So in case you can't see something with your satellites or your human sources on the ground, you would send the viewers in. There's that famous case where that plane disappeared from a Libyan defected with a Soviet plane from Libya, and it went down somewhere in Africa. And that's what the viewers were told. I talked to one of them. It was in task. It was Carter that tasked them to do this. They found the plane within a couple hours. You know how big Africa is? It was under a rainforest in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and they couldn't see it. The viewers located it. They sent in a Delta Force team, and they found this. Obviously, they wanted the electronics from this bomber, and they found it purely with viewing. And people were given medals for that, in sort of secret, not through public ceremonies. But that's how accurately it can work. You can find things that have gone missing with really well-trained viewers and things like that. So it's a lot of different ways to use it. Now, I've given targets to viewers. Like, I had a picture of Area 51, the landing strip there and the big hangars. I gave it to a viewer, and I called her up and I said, now she was in Salt Lake and I'm 500 miles away from her Boulder. I said, I have a target for you. Would you like to do it? That was the conversation. Hung up the phone. She reproduced the picture of that famous picture of seeing the airstrip at a distance and those big hangars and the Soviet MiGs in front. So she actually, on her own, walked around inside the hangars and saw a lot of anomalously shaped aircraft inside those hangars. So people can use it for a type of espionage and so forth. Now, it raises a lot of questions. There's obviously moral and ethical questions about how to use it. Is it okay? That's obviously a big discussion. So people use it for a variety of reasons like that. And there's also a whole branch of viewing with medical diagnosis, and kind of getting into distant healing, obviously missing persons. And I would imagine companies use it for corporate espionage, but they probably don't talk about that very much. So that's kind of a pretty broad answer to it. So there's a lot of uses for it. But again, I would say the biggest use is simply to understand your own workings better, because that could lead to very interesting places. Again, once you get the ball rolling, it could roll in interesting directions, and you could discover abilities that you didn't know you had. I've had people take these classes I've given, which were in the past were in person in different locations, and recently I've done them over Zoom. People have started like drawing and creating beautiful art that they never even knew, an ability they didn't know they had. It seems to open up capacity within your, mind and your brain. Physically, because you're using your brain in a different way than you have been, it leads you to see that you have abilities that you didn't have. So there's a real broad range of applications, I would say that way, direct and kind of broader personal development.
Well, that is something that we should check out. We have you for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. So far, we got a UFO. We have a bright shooting star.
Yeah.
What else is coming out of the sky next? What else? Black triangles, black helicopters, black magic, black projects, black night satellite. I don't know. Simeon, you got to fill us in when we come back on Spaced Out Radio. Simeon Hein is our guest tonight. His website, SimeonHein.com. Having a lot of fun. We've talked crop circles. We've talked UFOs. We've talked remote viewing. Where should we go from here? That is the big question. Once again, his website, SimeonHein.com. We'll talk to you right on the other side of the break as we got Simeon for another 30 minutes. Then Joe Mergia comes in to talk about the New York Times article at the bottom of the hour and the thought of the day. Stay tuned. More Spaced Out Radio coming up in Hour 3.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckard, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the story you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is the paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall. I'd like to invite you to listen in each Sunday night where we're going to open up your eyes to everything strange and paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect us all, such as UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. Let's learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm the guy who hosts this show. My name's Dave Scott, and I am all here to talk weird with you. Why not? We are welcoming in everyone listening in on our terrestrial stations across North America and on the digital side on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. Remember, all of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Abselophesia. Abselophesia is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show and on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. For the final time tonight, we introduce Dr. Simeon Hein. We've gone over, we've touched on almost everything weird and strange and full of woo tonight. Yes, UFOs, crop circles, remote viewing. Where are we going to go from here? Who knows? Who knows? This is always unscripted. SimeonHein.com is his website. Simeon, I have a topic that I want to ask you, because in the end, this is all paranormal. Whether it's ghosts, cryptids, crop circles, UFOs, aliens, psychic consciousness. Let's talk about ghosts here. What do you think the role of ghosts is around the whole topic? What are they?
Yeah, no, good question. It's something I've experienced, I've read a lot about. It's obviously a real phenomena. And again, there's probably a couple different circumstances that produce that experience for people. But it does appear that in many cases that there's someone, again, in their own reality, in their time frame, that are coming through to ours. That's some of them. I realize there are very many different types of cases. And so fascinating. What reminds me of RV is when you get people experiencing ghost characters that seem out of the past, different time periods. People traveling the South, seeing in a very deserted road someone dressed like a Civil War soldier, and then they look back and it's gone. Or, some sort of historical time period. Again, that suggests to me, for some types of ghost experiences, that this is bleed through from another reality, where in that person's reality, they're still experiencing that time frame of, the Civil War. And it's somehow, the walls between these time frames are breaking down for some reason a little bit in that person's realm of experience, and they're experiencing another reality. I've had experiences of this phenomenon myself. Most recently, when my father passed on in 2011, I went back to the house where Mom was, and we were just, taking care of her and everything. And all of a sudden, heard this pipe banging in the basement. And I had grown up in that house. It never did that on its own. Like a person banging a hammer against the pipe. And I thought it must be Mom, right? Or my girlfriend who was there at the time or something. And it wasn't. Each one thought it was the other doing it. And that was just a few days after he had passed on. There was a number of really strange experiences for a couple of days. And then it transitioned into dream time at night. And I'm sure some listeners have experienced this too. Again, we're not talking a physical experience now. We're talking where you have a dream where the person who's just passed on comes to you and tells you what it's like to be on the other side, or some very valuable piece of information, and you wake up and wonder, wow, how was that? How did that happen? I've had it happen with pets, so that's kind of another realm. Now, going back to applications of RV, I don't think if I had not taken RV, I don't think those experiences would happen. Somehow, practicing RV teaches you to feel uncomfortable with uncertainty. It feels you to feel the flow is okay. You just follow your awareness, and it'll lead you to something interesting. And that carries over into your experiences at night with dreams, so that you get the feeling of having contact with a deceased loved one or pet or something like that. And it only happened to me after I had learned RV. Happened with my father and with pets, dogs and so forth that I had for a while. Very vivid dreams where you see them in places that just don't even seem like realities that you see here on Earth. But when you wake up, it felt really real. And in some cases, you may have received information from the person that's too specific, and you're thinking that was not a dream, that was a real contact with them. Of course, you had to be in that dream state at night to be receptive to that frequency. And again, that's what we're talking about again. Being open to the reality of different frequencies that are around us. But I'd say most of the time, and perhaps because we're also busy and practical, we're just tuning out. And RV teaches you to open up to those a little bit. It's kind of like, I've joked, it's kind of like a gateway drug, RV. Two different experiences. Because once you realize, hey, this is real and no one told me about this, you begin to wonder, well, what else is real that they didn't tell me about, right? And you start pursuing all these topics, including ghost topics and other things like that. So ghosts are really a fascinating topic. And again, my take on it is bleed through from other realities where those entities are still alive in the form that they're in. Perhaps some of them don't know they've passed on, so they're still kind of in the time frame that they were when they, passed on. But something like that. That's how I sort of see it.
Do you think there is a tie together between everything? Because earlier you had mentioned that, many people don't believe that UFOs are tied to cryptids or tied to ghosts or tied to other phenomena that is happening. Yet there are many others like Micah Hanks, David Weatherly, and so forth, Timothy Renner, another one I really respect, who are believing that there is some sort of almost like an invisible thread that is sewn between all of these phenomena. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I think just the data shows us we have to go in that direction of these other researchers you're mentioning. And the reason it's connected to us is it may not be coming to us from the outside like it seems. It could be that we're opening up to something larger, and there's a lot more out there that you and I didn't know about, that nobody taught us about, because maybe we have all reached the limit of what our planet formally knows. And let's say that's just a fraction of a percent of reality. And that's what we're suggesting here. That, again, what we're consciously aware of. I think that's what RV shows us. Remote viewing shows us your conscious mind is only aware of like 1,000th of a percent of reality around you. And you can tune into the rest of it if you put your attention on that, right? So these phenomena are all real. And for the most part, just like we don't see the stars during the day because there's so much light around, it just kind of, the light drowns it all out and all you see is the blue sky, but the stars are still there, right? And when the sun goes down, you see them. It's like that with our awareness of these phenomena. It's not as much as they're coming to us. It's kind of we're going out and all of a sudden meeting them kind of halfway at their frequency. Again, the analogy is kind of like you are tuned to a couple radio stations your whole life. Maybe it's spaced out radio, right? And a couple other stations. And all of a sudden you discover through whatever experience you have, be it RV or a near-death experience, which I've spoken to people who have had those too, which show them a whole different description of reality, that there are other radio stations out there which nobody told you about. You didn't learn about them in school. No one talked about them. And you're going along your life thinking everything's fine and I got this all figured out. And there's a lot more stations out there that you didn't know about. And you start experiencing these stations. And then you wonder, what other stations? And on these different stations, if you tune into them, there's a UFO channel, there's a ghost channel, there's a Bigfoot channel. That's how I see them being connected. Not necessarily that they're all variations of the same phenomena, but our perception grows and changes. Even this New York Times article, think about the impact of so many people reading this, finding out that there's really the possibility of extraterrestrial materials that somebody knows about and has been studying. And that opens you, well, what else do they have that they didn't tell us about? And it's the same way with these experiences. It's like permission. You have to give yourself permission to explore the unknown. And let's be honest about it. It can feel scary. It can feel really scary when you're up against it. But, I mean, don't we really want to experience what life really is instead of a caricature of what we've been told it is? It's different, the story, than our experience of what it is. And sometimes you're going up against it, and it's like, what am I involved with? But when you go through it, you feel like, I'm really glad I did that. It's like just doing something really difficult that you're glad you finished when you went through it because it showed you another point of view. What we're talking about with all these topics, be it ETs or Bigfoot or ghosts, is literally going beyond the knowledge of society. And we've all been socialized to play it safe and stick with what society says is the game. But you can't do that and discover these topics at the same time, because that's, reality is a lot of ways of getting to you. And if we're surrounded by other civilizations or other frequencies of life, or as I like to think about it, other parallel realities, right? It's not going to feel the same as the reality you were taught to believe in. But isn't it better to really be in touch with reality the way it really is than a kind of story about it? That's just the way I feel about it. So every day I push myself to go farther into all these topics, get more data, read more. There's so many ways to get access to this information now, and start seeing the connections between it and realize we're the ones that are we've had these self-imposed limitations. Not anyone's fault. I mean, people were burned as witches not too long ago, right? Millions in medieval Europe, right? So it's understandable that people are afraid to go out and be different. But I think the message of all this, it's not actually the materials, like just as an example, UFO materials. It's about your materials, about being yourself, the kind of really being unique, kind of discovering your abilities, and in the process at the same time, discovering what sort of universe we really live in. I mean, again, science tells us we don't understand 95% of the matter out there. We don't even know where it is, but it's got to be there. So you're really just following the scientific tradition, which is to discover more of what's out there, and you're not going to discover what you thought you were going to find. That's the lesson we learn from RV every time. You do these sections, and it never turns out the way you expect it to. And that's when you get the best, most accurate data. It didn't go the way you thought it was going to go. And that is the way it is with these topic states. We're going to find it's a different reality than we thought we were in. But hey, people have been through this and survived it before. I'm just going back to the history of science. A couple hundred years ago, the debate was about how many Earths there were, because there was thought to be a ocean Earth and a solid Earth. And the debates at the time were, is the ocean Earth bigger than the solid Earth? They couldn't quite figure out how the oceans fit with land. And there was this feeling like the Earth solid part was floating on the ocean part, like an apple, in a big bath of water. No one could figure it out. Well, now we know it's solid Earth with oceans on top. But they couldn't see that for a long time. So people have gone through these debates in the past, these thinking processes, and it's often very contentious to decide what is really reality really made of. But you got to go through it, or you're still going to be living in this kind of Earth-centered universe where the Earth's the center of everything and nothing really changes out there. This Aristotelian universe where it's all static. I mean, that's kind of boring, right? So why stay there? We're all going to get to discover this together, Dave. That's the point, and it's not going to be what we thought. But hey, it's always been like that. So no big.
You take what you can get. You take what you can get. That's for sure. Simeon Hein is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Simeon, I forgot to ask you this earlier when we were talking about aliens and UFOs and everything. Do you believe that we have had contact on this planet, considering, never mind all the stories people have said. Hell, I'm an experiencer myself, but take those, throw them in the garbage. Do you think this planet has been visited?
Yes, I do. I do
Why
think
is
we've
that?
been visited. Well, again, going back to discussions with people that have handled these really exotic materials that are made of a technology that they tell me is at a nanoscale that we can't do, we can't make. No one, no civilization, no country on Earth can do that. So that had to come from somewhere. Now, there's a possibility that that comes from another civilization on Earth that we don't know about. A parallel reality Earth, dark matter, parallel reality we don't know about, but we can detect gravitationally. I mean, something we can't see, but it's next to us. Or that's the possibility that it's visitors from other places. And I'm of the mind that it's all of these possibilities, and that some of that does include extraterrestrial. So it's simply of talking, because when I talk to these witnesses, who again I'm hoping will come forward at some point and talk to the rest of us, they tell me these isotopes are from another part of the galaxy. You don't find them in our solar system or our section of the Milky Way. It's from another part of the Milky Way. And I've heard this from a variety of researchers and people who've handled these UFO materials, for lack of a better word. So to me, that suggests extraterrestrial, right? I mean, there is the possibility, Dave, that it's a civilization from here that went out there and came back that we don't know anything about. I guess that's possible. But we're talking about materials that are coming from another part of the galaxy, and in some cases 1,000 years more advanced or even farther than that. So, I mean, what does that suggest? It just got here from out there. So that suggests to me someone visiting from far away. That might not be the most common type of so-called ET. I mean, I think from the many interacting worlds model, which I study, again, from quantum mechanics, suggests that you're most likely to interact with the parallel realities that are more similar to yours. But we are talking about materials made of nanotechnology, as I guess Joe Murgia will expand on in a few minutes, that I am told is from another part of the galaxy, from people that have looked at the isotopes, that you can't make it here, and it's from a zero-G environment. So to me, that suggests ET. That's why.
But ET life, like I'm talking aliens flying here on a ship through the cosmos, coming here, maybe finding a way to push together the to break the time speed continuum, whatever it may be called, because I'm so not a scientist. But that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, I mean, as we're learning from these materials, they affect the so-called permittivity of space-time, right? And the speed of light is determined by a set permittivity, right? The electrical constant of space-time. So if you change permittivity, you change the speed of light. And that means these objects could travel faster than the speed of light if they've changed the permittivity of the space-time around them. Now, talking about ETs, this isn't something we've gotten into yet, but I mean, people have encountered a lot of different types of beings over the years, right? Now, they could be other civilizations that, I mean, from Earth, and we don't know about. If you take the Jacques Vallée point of view, it's some sort of projection that's showing it to us as ETs just because that's something we can relate to. But again, it seems that there's a lot of different humanoid types of life, and if you talk to some of these military witnesses, some of the witnesses that were in Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project and so forth, they said very consistently that there were different species that were known about in the 60s, like Robert O'Dean said in a NATO report that he saw. And I talked to him about what that report looked like, how thick it was, and the drawings in there. He said there were 4 types they knew about in the 60s. And later we were told from other witnesses that it had expanded to 20 to 60 to hundreds. So that's what we're being told from some of these witnesses, that there are a lot of different species. And I imagine sometimes they show up here. I mean, it's probably very interesting to see what's going on here. At a minimum, just at a scientific level, they might decide it's a little too dangerous to kind of land here on a permanent basis. But, I mean, if we had the technological capability, wouldn't we be surveying other planets? We're already doing it with the closest planets to Earth, right? Just with robotic missions to survey those planets. So wouldn't we be doing it too if we had the technology? And so if this technology that we started the show talking about, this kind of UFO, nanotechnology, exomaterials, whatever you want to call it, whatever this turns out to be, if someone already figured out how to move around in ways that we haven't yet, it seems to me that part of, life is just looking at what other life is doing. So it seems to me to make logical sense that that would be part of what we're seeing with these UFOs and other unexplained phenomena, that some of it is literally, beings in these craft coming here to do whatever they're doing while they're here.
Do you believe they're us from the future, maybe time travelers?
Yeah, I think we can't rule that out at all. I mean, look, we can already do a little bit of time travel with RV. Let's say someone in our future had figured out actually how to move around in space and time. Yeah, I think a chunk of it would seem to be our future selves coming back to just see what's going on here. I mean, you and I would be doing it if we could travel back 1,000 years and just see what life was like, or 2,000 years or more. So sure, some of it could be so-called future, versions of us, or as I think of it, other parallel realities that we call the future moving through. I mean, labs already moving particles around, doing teleportation over short distances. It's already something at a small scale we already know how to do. And if you just extrapolate, you'd imagine other civilizations could actually just jump around in space and time macroscopically. So, sure.
We've only got 90 seconds left with you tonight, and this is a show that has flown on by, Simeon, and I want to say a big thank you. This is the first time we've had a chance to ever talk to you on this show. I definitely hope it's not the last, because what you bring is pretty incredible and just a plethora of knowledge, man, and thank you for entertaining our audience that way.
Oh, thanks very much, Dave. Really enjoyed it. Thanks to everyone who listened.
Could you do us a favor and let us know where people can find your work, your books, everything you do? We got about.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm on YouTube. I had a very active YouTube channel with lots of interactive subscribers who always have great questions for my videos. I post a lot of videos about these sort of topics, and you can just put my name in, Simeon Hein, into YouTube to find me. You can find my books on Amazon, or my website's Opening Minds, Black Swan Ghost, which is all about UFO witnesses that I interviewed. That's a whole nother story. We haven't talked about all these witnesses that came forward. And, of course, on Twitter and other social media sites. So feel free to go to YouTube or Twitter, or my website's SimeonHein.com. My blog is newcrystalmind.com. So
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for coming on the show, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You too, and let's do it again soon.
Absolutely. Simeon Hein, everyone, at SimeonHein.com. Coming up next, this is what we're going to do. We're going to bring in Joe Mergia for the SOR Newswire. We're going to talk about the New York Times article that dropped today about UFOs. This is the one Joe was talking about just a couple of weeks ago when he was on the show. We'll get a breakdown on that right after this. Stay tuned.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hey, Spaced Out Radio fans! It's John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from vans to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month, and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Hi there, this is the paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall. I'd like to invite you to listen in each Sunday night, where we're going to open up your eyes to everything strange and paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect us all, such as UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. Let's learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
We passed this halfway point. Actually, we're into the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Great to have each and every one of you with us tonight. Boy, am I off on time. This has just flown on by. I thought we still had like 2 hours to go yet. Wow. Anyways, it's time for the news. Let's just get to it. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the truth. Now, if you didn't see the New York Times article earlier today, it broke about UFOs and the fact that the United States government may have actual crash retrieval. I think we're getting closer to an admittance, and the reason why we're doing a little bit of a different segment tonight on the SOR Newswire is because Captain Shirk grabbed me by the ear. She's like, for calling me Shirky Poo last night, you better get Joe Mergia on to talk about this story, because he's been the one pushing it. He's been the one saying it was coming, and now it dropped. Joe Mergia, welcome back.
Glad to be back, Dave. Pretty momentous day.
It was a big day, and the New York Times article interviewed 3 people. They interviewed Harry Reid, the former senator from Nevada. They interviewed Luis Elizondo from the To the Stars Academy, and they interviewed scientist Eric Davis regarding this phenomena of what is going on. Joe, break it down for us for those who haven't read it.
Well, first of all, the article came out this afternoon, and I have been hyping the heck out of this for the last couple of months and saying it was going to be world-changing. And, I mean, it's less than what I expected. And when I read it, I thought it looked a little light. I was like, this is pretty short. I'm like, is this really the article I've been hyping? So I went through it all, and I was a little disappointed. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go play some drums. I'll come back later. And then people are tweeting. They're like, you need to look closer. And like, you missed this part. So yeah, it starts out. It says, Mr. Elizondo is among a small group of former government officials and scientists with security clearances who say they are convinced that objects of undetermined origin have crashed on Earth with materials retrieved for study. So that's a big deal right there. It's a little odd that there's not a quote from Elizondo saying that. Well, it's talking about Elizondo and a small group of former government officials, which I would love to see those people named, but they're probably anonymous. But yeah, objects of undetermined origin have crashed. Certainly seems like UFOs have crashed, Dave. I mean, that's early on in the article. And then talking about Senator Harry Reid, he said he believed that crashes of vehicles from other worlds had occurred, and that retrieved materials had been studied secretly for decades. And they were actual materials that the government and the private sector had in their possession. So just those two paragraphs right there. That's a big deal. I mean, it's the New York Times, the paper of record. That's, to get this article in there, it went through a lot with the editing process, I'm sure. So right away, that's a huge deal. And as much as I may have been disappointed at first, I can't be disappointed with those two paragraphs right there.
Okay, so why is this article important? What is different from it than what we have seen and heard from the past that anybody has done research on, whether it's yourself, Richard Dolan, Grant Cameron, or anybody of that ilk?
It's the New York Times. That's it. It's the New York Times. It's not UFOjoe.net. It's not, and as much as I love Richard Dolan and Grant Cameron, it's like, we're not the New York Times. People pay attention to the New York Times. And when you have credible people like Luis Elizondo and Senator Harry Reid and Eric Davis, we can get to his quotes. That's a big deal. And I had people, it's funny, I have people on my Facebook today who I haven't heard from in 30 years. I saw them click a like on the article. One woman I worked with down in Fort Myers when I was shooting news, her father was a big time New York news anchor, and she clicked like on it. And I really would love to reach out to her. She's in the business or was in the business. So I think people know the New York Times is a big deal. So as far as where we go from here, we'll see.
Well, okay. So the big part of this story that caught my attention was the crash retrieval. And the one thing that did surprise me is nobody seemed to know where it came from. Are we looking at something from Roswell here or something different? And is this just the start of the breaking of the cover-up?
I don't know where they're from. I didn't know if they were going to go Roswell or not. Just saying objects of undetermined origin have crashed on Earth is a pretty big deal. And then Reid saying vehicles from other worlds. I mean, that's a pretty big deal for the former Senate Majority Leader to say that. And where do we go from here? I don't know. Are they going to follow up? I mean, Ralph Blumenthal, one of the co-authors, he said that, you can't report everything at once. And this is interesting. Ralph Blumenthal has been on a New York Times comment section answering a lot of questions from readers, which is really great to see. And there's some juicy stuff on there. He's talking about, possible future articles and just going piece by piece on each message. I didn't expect to see that. I thought maybe he'd be busy, the article celebrating, but he's on there answering questions, which is really great. Nothing from Leslie Kean yet. And then later on the article, Davis is talking about he briefed the Defense Department agency as recently as March about retrievals from, quote, off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. And then he did briefings on retrievals of unexplained objects to staff members of the Senate Armed Services Committee on October 21st, 2019, and to staff members of the Senate Intelligence Committee 2 days later. So some pretty important people have been briefed on this. So where do we go from there? Here is, I think I don't know if an article will come out before we see the UAP task force take their next steps. And that's, what's really interesting about this, Dave, and I noticed this, they quoted Marco Rubio from an interview he did with CBS Miami a few days ago. And in the New York Times, they quoted him. But interestingly enough, they left out his most important quote. In the article, in the interview, he said, frankly, if it's something outside this planet, that might actually be better than the fact that we've seen some sort of technological leap from the Chinese or Russians. So basically, if it's from another planet, that's better off for us. That's what Rubio said in the CBS Miami interview. Nowhere to be found in the New York Times article, which is it's a little baffling to me why they would leave that out.
Yeah, I thought that quote by Rubio was huge as well. In regards to this article, though, okay, going through the list of everything that is going on, how important is it now, and I said to ask Simeon Hein this earlier, how important is it now for the media to jump on board and start asking some big questions here? I know it's easy to say, well, they have to, but they haven't in the past. Are we getting to that point where now we have politicians who are currently sitting talking about this subject? We have scientists talking about this subject. We have Harry Reid talking about this subject. Are we getting to that point now where the can of worms is open and it's time for the entire lid to come off?
I think this is a nice first step. And if you're a reporter and you don't call up Senator Harry Reid and say, can we get more information on what you said in the New York Times article or Dr. Eric Davis or Luis Elizondo, you're derelict in your duty. And now, we say it should happen. The rest of the world should take off with this story. But so far, I have not seen that so far. And it came out this afternoon. I've seen maybe 3 or 4 articles. So tomorrow it will be a judge for how they're reacting to this. But who knows, Dave? I mean, nothing's guaranteed. They may say, you know what, there's really not a lot in that article, so we're going to pass. This is just too controversial for us. So time will tell.
Well, you've worked with a lot of media people in this. Give us your best guesstimate. The thing that I want to see, and this is what I'm curious about your opinion. I want to see what the follow-up is. The initial story is always great, but it's what happens when reporters get together and say, I dropped the ball on this one. I got to find out what's going on. And they start making phone calls. That's where the juice starts to come out and it starts to flow. Do you see that happening, or do you see this being shoved under the rug?
I don't know what's going to happen, but if reporters out there who have the resources that somebody like me does not have, if they start digging, they're going to get the story that I thought this story was supposed to be a lot bigger. And I had sources telling me some aspects that were supposed to be included that were not included. And if other reporters take the time and start digging, I think they can get that story as long as they can get those people to go on the record. Now that the New York Times has published, and they publish what they have, whether or not they follow up, I know Ralph Blumenthal has said, this is just the beginning, and there'll be more. We can't publish everything at once. Whether or not it's in the New York Times or another place, I don't know. Hopefully, yeah, you want to see everybody. You want to see every cable news network get involved in this. You want to see the Washington Post. You want to see Politico. Let's see what they come up with. If they've taken their time and dug deep, they may be able to actually trump what the New York Times has done here. And I'm not going to take anything away from Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kean because they've done amazing work, but there's a lot more, Dave. There's a lot more. I mean, they haven't touched on the Wilson Davis documents, and we know they were investigating that. There's the 1961 SNIE document, which is an MJ-12 document, which everybody told me is fake, and it is not fake. And that will eventually come out. It may not come out in the New York Times follow-up if they do one. Eventually it will. And that's a huge document too, because all you have to do is just prove that one MJ-12 document is real, and it's right away. It's like, okay, MJ-12 is real. And ufology has a major problem with that. And it would be, I'd love to see the reactions, but right now, I'm like, I can't prove it. We have one article. This is what we have. It's a great start, and we have to wait and see what the other media do and what the New York Times does as a follow-up, if they do a follow-up.
The other thing that interests me about this article, Joe, is the fact that they were fully mentioning that this study has been going on for 2007. The project did not shut down the way they tried to spin it a couple of years ago. And we all knew that it wasn't there, but the mainstream people really didn't. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that they are still running this UFO program, do we now get to know, or do you see a time when we're going to get to know the names and faces of these people running this so-called UFO program that Luis Elizondo left?
I think before that happens, I think we're going to see full videos. And I don't know when, but I don't think it's that far off, Dave, that we get to see the full gimbal video. I've heard some of these videos are 40 minutes long with these objects making 90-degree turns and doing the things you would expect from these videos that we have not seen. Because those 3 videos, they're interesting, but they're not what we've been hoping for. We want to see right-angle turns and just sudden acceleration. The Tic Tac had a sudden acceleration to the left. Great. But that's, what I'm talking about. As far as, where else? I'm lost my train of thought. What was your question again?
Well, just in regards to the group that has been studying these, we knew this group existed, but we were told, by Elizondo and others that the group was shut down as of 2012. We now learned that it was never shut down. It's still involved. It's still doing its investigation, although now they're saying the program is not classified. The information that they are finding is. So are we going to get to know some of these players?
I don't know if we'll get to know some of the players, but it's interesting. Like you said, the program is not classified, but the data is classified. For me personally, I mean, if we ever do have hearings, if we get that far, I think, we will hear from some of those people. For me personally, I mean, people who work in the DIA, wherever these people are working, the Naval Office of Intelligence. I'm not saying that right, but I'm more concerned. I want to see the videos. I want to see what this UAP task force does with Marco Rubio at the helm. And I know somebody who's friends with Rubio, and this person is not. They're kind of a well-known person, and they're not into UFOs. I mean, I've spoken with them about it, and I said, hey, Rubio's heading up a UAP task force. It's UFOs. He's like, I'll call Marco next week to get to the bottom of this. And it's great because it's like somebody, normally what I would say UFOs, they say, yeah, interesting, and they just ignore me. But back to your question. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get to see the people. Right now they work in the shadows. They're anonymous. Elizondo, that's one thing. Remember, Elizondo, since I think everything he has said has panned out so far. He's a guy I trust. I don't see, people. There's still people out there that are saying, he's disinfo, and it's like, you need to get over this. This is happening. He's been a part of this. Everything's happening the way he said it would happen. Everything has panned out. He's never gotten caught in a lie. So, like I said, it's exciting, and let's see where we go from here.
Joe Mergia joins us on Spaced Out Radio for a special edition of the SOR Newswire. Joe, we only got about 2 minutes before we got to get to the thought of the Dave here. So my next question to you is, are we going to see more information coming out? Because the article really left us with a cliffhanger in the New York Times that there was more to come, maybe more videos, maybe more information, maybe more people speaking out. Are we on the road to a media disclosure that this phenomena is extremely real?
I think what you saw in the New York Times had a lot to do with the editing process, and other people have spoken about it. And I actually have a blog on my blog about that process and what they were going through and how they were going to get information into the story. And I think a lot of it was left on the cutting room floor. Now, does that wind up in another periodical? Does that wind up in the Washington Post? Does that wind up in a follow-up article in the New York Times? I don't know. I think eventually it will come out. There are other people working on, Dave, it's not just the New York Times. It's not just Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal. There are other people, somebody working on a book that's supposed to be a blockbuster. So even if we have to wait for the New York Times or somebody else, even some of the follow-ups, there are other things going on. So this is the first step for me. I would never have said this 3 weeks ago. I wouldn't have said this. This is the first step for disclosure. And it may take a couple of years as far as full disclosure, or maybe longer, but it's happening. It's crash retrievals in the New York Times is a big deal. People should be excited. Just be patient. I tell people, be patient. Things are happening behind the scenes. The next thing I'm looking for is that book, because like I said, it's going to be a blockbuster from what I'm hearing.
All right, Joe Mergia, thank you so much for joining us. And you can stick around for the thought of the Dave if you want. It's up to you. You got nice hair. So, all right, let's get to it here. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. What's your thoughts on crop circles? If I had a razor, I could put a beautiful crop circle in Joe Mercia's hair right now. Totally could. Totally could. Let's start off with Marty, one of our favorite veterans around here, and we love our veterans here on Spaced Out Radio. Thank you for the clown, Marty. Very sultry. Very sultry. He says, I think they're just simply paranormal graffiti. Oh, wow. Spookles the cat. They are ruining a good batch of popcorn. I'm going to assume that has to do with the wheat fields there that they are going in. All right, let's continue on. Quinoa. I wish there were more in New Jersey. We're not allowed to leave the country. Go to see them in England. Joe, some are faked. If there is the possibility of them being real, the various resonance and frequency vibration theories may have to be considered and studied further. Pat. The more imaginative ones are so elegant they should be pattern independent, but who holds the copyright on these designs? That's the real question. Recon. Some are real, some are fake. Which ones are which? I have no clue. Lone Wolf. If aliens are really trying to communicate with us, as some people believe, they need to find a better way than marking our wheat fields with their indecipherable intergalactic gang graffiti. Oh. Joe, you gotta hate graffiti, man. You gotta hate graffiti.
I actually, the graffiti I would see on the subways when I would go see my grandparents in Brooklyn, I loved that graffiti. It was just part of the atmosphere going to Brooklyn. So that kind of graffiti was okay.
All right. John on Facebook says, some of them are no doubt hoaxes, but I don't think you can say that about every single one. Tim, mixed. Most are hoaxed, in my opinion. Gail, otherwise known as Shirky Poo around here. I believe, for the most part, they are messages from aliens, even though we have no idea what they are saying to us. Then again, crops could be one huge canvas to them, and they are creating Earth art. Well, that's kind of romantic there. The gorgeous and talented Jessica, who's also in our YouTube chat, she says they are trying to say what goes around comes around. I wonder what you mean by that, Jessica. You'll have to break that down in the chat room. JJ, yes, there have been fakes, but mankind is in a stupid mode and they are leaving breadcrumbs for us to follow and smarten us up. Somehow I feel it's not working out for our advantage. Chris, also in our chat room, after watching Arrival, I began to look at them in a new light. Dale and his power stash. Interesting. I worked out this idea 3-4 years ago, except I think the microwave emitters are on UFOs and the circles are either alien artwork or gang signs. Penman. They are unique markers and identifiers in time and space. The hoaxed ones are fairly easy to spot. Devin, I enjoy the idea that they are communications from Mother Earth itself, but I'm always open to new information. Cheryl Costa, former guest, crop circles have nothing to do with aliens, but rather some sort of energy pattern generated by Earth. Oh, way to break our hearts. Nicole, I know you're watching. Whenever they are tested and found to be real, I'd like to see them in 3D. That's where we're going to end everything tonight on the Thought of the Dave. We're going to do it all again tomorrow on our Facebook and Twitter pages. So thank you so much for taking the time to participate. A big thanks to Captain Shirk for setting up the Newswire. She's the one who recommended that we go to Joe Mergia on this. And I said, great idea, Captain. Let's do this thing. And Joe, thank you so much for coming on, man. I know it's brief, but it was very important.
No, thank you very much, Dave. It was a big day, and I look forward to coming back with next time we have big news like this. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You hold on. Also to Dr. Simeon Hein. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thought background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everyone listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. And, of course, everybody in our chat rooms on Spreaker, YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club at our website, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. All of you did a great job tonight. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Remember, everybody, the Woo train has docked for the night. But tomorrow, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, there's always room for them, too. Good night.